Live and direct, live and I take no jive.
Legalize it.
So how much can a koala bear? Koala bear, koala bear. Koala bear. Barry pulls a joint out of his pocket. Bill says, "Great, Barry, a reefer."
Hi, welcome back to the Koala podcast. And in this episode, I'm speaking to Dotan Melech of CTrust, a cannabis credit rating agency. And as he just warned me, if we drop out halfway through, it's not his fault because a hurricane has just hit his hometown. Tornado, not hurricane. So if we do lose him, we'll come back. And when the weather improves, if it ever does, of course, on this planet, is more likely we're going to be living in some sort of dystopian J.G. Ballard world, but don't get me onto that topic. Welcome to the show, Dotan, and I'm actually really interested to talk to you. I had a partner for many years who was at Moody's, and so I lived the credit rating life for a good 20 years of my life. So I got bored sick of the conversation of credit agency, but I'm interested in learning how a cannabis credit agency rating agency works, and if there's enough business for you guys at the moment.
Well, that's a great question. Thank you, Sean. And hopefully I will try to make it less boring than your partner made it over.
Well, no, she wasn't boring. It went on for a very long time. We lived an interesting and varied life, but every day hearing about credit rating can, well, obviously not for you, but I reached my limit.
Yeah, no, I'll try to make it interesting, and clearly cannabis as an industry is not a boring one, as you can imagine. There's a lot of changes, regulatory and economic changes that are taking place nationwide. Clearly, it's in the news with the rescheduling, and what does that mean? And there's a lot of opinions out there. CTrust is tailored to the cannabis industry. It focuses on operators, CRBs, as we call them, cannabis-related businesses that are plant-touching companies, and would like to have an understanding of what their risk profile is, as well as use it as a tool for them to manage risk better than they have been in the past. As we all know, the seismic shift from equity to debt is really the main reason why we're here. Why credit rating is necessary, is needed. Equity, when the first industry started, as one of the biggest startups this nation has ever seen as an industry, there was a lot of hype, there was a lot of equity behind it, and pro formas and balance sheets and plans were very impressive and interesting at the time. Long behold,
and a lot of overvaluation as well at the time, wasn't there?
Absolutely. Valuation is a big issue, was a big issue then, and it is a big issue now. But we've seen the change. We've seen the, if you will, the failure of companies as a result of either bad plan or bad execution or combination of both. And the shift to debt is ultimately requires to have some sort of a risk profile or credit rating assessment that you can literally take to the bank if there was one.
Well, that was going to be my first. It's the first and most obvious question is you have a credit rating agency for a bunch of companies who obviously, as you said, it's about debt, but they can't go to the bank. Well, they can go to some state banks, but essentially they can't rock up in Wall Street, can they? And say we want to do this. Can we raise some money? So how are you structuring providing credit rating on companies if they can't do the business with the financial system?
Well, our vision is to foster an environment where debt investment becomes attractive, meaning that financial institutions are now will have better visibility or understanding of what is a credit risk or credit profile of a CRB. And the way we approach it is quite different, because risk is very subjective. Everybody has different risk appetite, right? We don't. Some people like to climb mountains, and some people view it as too risky, right? So it's individual, it's subjective. What we attempted to do here, and what we have successfully have done here, is develop an objective risk algorithm that takes into account multiple business. We kind of look at a business from three perspectives, right? Their assets, which is kind of what everybody has been using for years. Their structure in cannabis is critical, how they're structured, how they make decisions, how they operate, those issues that can come up if the structure is not the right one. And of course, the last category is character. Those are softer items, things that really what make up the DNA or what make up the culture that this business was able to develop over the years. Every business has gems, right? Every business has core competencies that they're really good at, but they're not, as familiar with, or at least they see through the results that there's certain things that they should not be doing, right? And we're.
Is this a combination? You said algorithm. Is it a combination of algorithm and research, or research that goes into the algorithm? I'm just trying to understand how.
Well, the algorithm. Great question, Sean. And algorithm is something that is developed through research. So we've been in stealth mode for over 18 months. And during that time, we have conducted many studies and researches along the way. So we started with a study. We wanted to understand, is there a need for a credit rating? How would that work? What would the companies or the market, how would that market respond to it? Are the financial institutions going to rely on it?
That sounds like you might have had a permanent migraine for the first 3 months.
18 months, actually.
18, I know you said 18, but hopefully after the first 3 months, otherwise you would have given up.
Well, it was a learning experience, because, you can come up with great ideas, and great ideas are not businesses, right? You got to understand how to transform ideas into an operating business, a successful business. And we took the time. We took the time to develop the algorithm, to test it. We built a simulator. We tested thousands of dummy companies because we didn't have access to real company data at the time. And since we've completed our pilot, which was really designed to test the algorithm that we developed over time with real data, real companies. And every single step we've learned a lot through the process, and we perfected or concluded that it works. It works. It does what it's supposed to do. It produced a credit score that is very intuitive. It's very similar to the FICO, so it's 200 to 800. Mm-hmm. And you actually get, as a result, if you ask what's the end product is a credit score and a credit report. You can actually look at the factors that either push your score up, down, or keep or neutral. So as a company, if you were a CRB, it could help you have an understanding of how to manage your risk, because we're objective. We're Switzerland, right? We're coming in as a third party. We bring in data that is quality data that we vet, we verify, we do QA. We have a QA/QC process in our business, and we essentially give you an objective score. Some of the companies.
What's your sales approach currently with companies? Are you going to them and saying, we've developed this? Are you saying we will provide you these scores? And if you provide because I imagine a lot of cannabis companies are fairly wary of providing their data to third parties willy-nilly. I mean, obviously, I presume you have a pretty tight contract when you do these things, but at the same time, I would imagine that must be quite a nervy start for cannabis companies. Considering those issues, I can see that they can see the benefit at the end, but the process might not appeal to them in the first place.
Surprisingly, we thought initially that we will have resistance, Sean. So I think it's a valid question. Surprisingly, every CRB that we spoke to was willing and happy to share their information in order to get a score. But we're not just collecting information from them directly. We also have a partnership with GreenCheck. GreenCheck is a marketplace where 9,000 plus CRBs and 160 plus banks interact. It's a marketplace where under the KYC policies, a lot of and the SARS, you have to upload data anyway to that platform in order to be able to have a bank account and interact with financial institutions. Our partnership allows us, of course, with the consent of the CRB, to utilize the data for the score. So we have that starting point, which I think this partnership is great. But when we spoke to CRBs directly, in addition to having this access to the data through the marketplace, they're willing to do this, because I think they all starting to understand that in order to grow and mature and
they need to supply this information to the market and the financial institutions.
Yeah, it's in their best interest. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what they need. They would like to have lines of credits. They'd like to be able to borrow against inventory. They'd like to get real estate financing, equipment financing, growth financing for acquisitions or M&A activities. Debt is an integral part of any matured market, a matured industry. And cannabis did not have that benefit. And hopefully, given where we are and given CTrust exists, it's going to allow that to happen, because we are objective. And all of our executives, what I consider to be the brain trust, are they're very experienced in both cannabis and non-cannabis industries. My partner, Bob Hoban, has been
I knew Bob was involved, and that's sort of why I was interested in talking to, because I know he's recently left the firm he was working for, and I've noticed he's got a new website, but I only recently came across the fact that he was working with you guys. So I was interested. Why did you decide to work with Bob? Was it his legal knowledge that was of interest, or was it his just wide knowledge of the industry, both within the US and outside?
I think the first important thing is we have chemistry. We get along. But the story goes, 2.5 years ago, we met in Denver, downtown Clark Hill office in their underground room. It's this beautiful historic building. You literally go underground through a door that is really a library. It's a secret door, and that's the conference room they use. And we just decided to talk. I presented my thoughts. I said, the industry needs something to help the industry grow and mature, where financial institutions, because I work with banks most of my life, so I understand the distress assets, the distress component of borrowers, right? I come from the what not to do world, the learn by elimination. So I've seen a lot of distressed companies in multiple industries, including cannabis. And we sat down and we said, there has to be a tool, there has to be some technology or some intelligence, company that provides intelligence that allows banks and cannabis companies to interact, and not just deposits, right? Those, that hurdle, I think, we overcame that. There's a large number of banks already banking the industry. The numbers that I heard out there is 800 plus banks already accepting deposits. So I don't think deposits are the issue. The issue that they will have is, well, now that I have all these deposits, how do I lend money? So Bob and I sat down, we mapped it out, we put it on a whiteboard, and decided that there's some validity there. Let's get started. And we started from scratch. We built the whole team, we built the strategy and go to market. And come in July, I'm very excited about it. Come in July, we are going to go live and open this platform for everyone. So we're still in the.
So when you say, so are you opening it? So you've approached X amount of companies already, and I would like to ask a couple of questions about that in a moment. But you're opening, so you've created your foundations of research and knowledge to work with the algorithm. You're opening the platform to allow people to come in to deposit information with you, or do you work with them as a one-on-one contract where they're paying you? I'm just trying to understand the
CRBs
approach of
Our
it.
service is free to CRBs. We do not
Okay.
charge CRBs. This is very similar to your consumer credit approach, right? If you think of FICO, right? FICO is very similar in them. It's your credit. You own it. I don't know it unless you want to tell me what it is. The only reason you'll tell me what it is because you want something from me. You want a loan, you want to buy a car, you want to buy a house. You have a need that you need to satisfy, and that credit is the way we start communicating. It's also the way companies or individuals are receiving or getting quoted on rates, right? Think about the fact that your credit today individually affects your credit card rates, it affects your car rates, it affects your mortgage rate. Very similar. We took the same approach, but we are tailored specifically and only to cannabis, and we are approaching it as if a company was an individual. That's why
I was about to say, so that's the approach. A company is an individual.
Yeah, so we look at all the three components, which makes it, right? Assets, structure, and character.
Yeah.
It's your score, so it's free to you. In exchange, of course, there will be some information that will be shared. Hopefully, we will get to a point that all that will be available to us through third parties, right? Through APIs and some other integrations that we're working on. That's our goal, that the CRBs will have to do very little other than consent. And then with their consent, once the score and the credit report is available, we give it to them, and they can decide whether they want to focus on improving it or share it with whomever they want to do business with, right? That's the model. We don't charge CRBs. This is their credit. The way we generate revenues is we sell our credit reports to third parties that would like to do business with the consent of the CRB, as well as debt under monitoring. We charge basis points on the outstanding debt while it's being monitored, because one of this is a very important part of our service, is not just the credit score in the report, but also monitoring it over time. So you as a company can see whether you're trending
so you
up.
Take equivalent. You take a subscription. You're in the first time, and then you have a subscription fee to be
going forward.
Yeah, going forward. Okay,
which is a debt under monitoring. Really, it's not really subscription, but of course we're not live yet, so we're still looking at all the various business models and ways for us to.
Understood totally. I mean, can you tell me how many companies you've spoken with, and do they cross the entire US geographically, and do they also cross the industry from growers to retailers to license? You said plant touching only, didn't you? So we're really only talking about, are we talking also about testing companies as well?
Yes, any cannabis related business. That's why we categorize it as CRBs. We score all the different types of licenses.
And will you be creating your standard public knowledge A+, A-, B+, in terms of being able to tell the wider media world and public world, which companies sit at the top, not so much which companies sit at the bottom, because we don't always highlight that. But will you be approaching it in that way as well, or is it really more of a discussion between you and the companies?
Our policy is that the credit scores of companies is confidential. This is not public information. We will not be sharing with the media or anybody out there unless there's a business transaction. I don't see anybody's FICO being advertised, and it shouldn't be. So we take the same approach, and we score per license. So whether you're a cultivator or a processor, manufacturer, or a retailer, or a lab, or logistics, or whatever category you fit within those within the supply chain of the cannabis industry, dealing directly with plants, whether it's the plant or processing the plant or finished product or retail, we develop the algorithm is calculating the score for each one of them, each type of the license differently. It's not the same exact algorithm for all types of licenses, because it doesn't make sense. They have different
Well, I was about to
risks.
say, and then and because you're on your state-based system, you've got a lot of work. You've got a lot of
That
work
is,
because, I mean, each
yeah.
state has about between 7 and 15 types of license, don't they?
Yeah, and some states have limited, some have unlimited. Some states allow for receivership, for example, which is important to financial institutions, and some states don't. And we also, which is a great segue, we also rank the states, because part of the score, and that may be that I'm not promising I can't at this point, but that may be information that we'll be willing to share publicly, and that is.
So that's sort of your version of sovereign rankings in a way.
Yes, and if you think about it, where you at matters. The market you're at, it matters, especially now, because every state does it differently, and every state makes some good decisions. Some states make good decisions on a regular basis. Some make really not so good, bad decisions on a regular basis. And those things, we track that. We track the environment, the zoning requirements, the tax structure, the limited versus unlimited, supply, price compression. We look at, supply and demand, price compression. We look at all those factors that actually make up the risk profile, if you will, of a state. So if you're an operator in California and you're an operator in Oklahoma, and those are complex states, that will factor into your score. It's already built in, the risk that involved in you just being there.
You haven't given yourself an easy job, have you?
No, I don't think it's an easy job, but I have to tell you, somebody had to do it. And I know that there was a lot of talks in the past. A lot of people told me they tried, they thought about it. Maybe it needed a receiver to take over one of the largest and the worst receivership case in North America to kind of suffer through, to understand the need that the companies have. Because receivership, if you ask me, half my life, that's what I've done. If you ask me, avoid it if you can. And this is essentially bringing that perspective, right? That score is designed around, because in my opinion, if you really want to understand risk, you have to live it.
Yeah.
If you really want to understand risk, truly understand risk, you have to be in that situation. You have to be in that environment to see what happens if you don't manage your risk. And then you can reverse engineer it. And that's the perspective we bring. I think that maybe that's what it took. It took somebody like Bob Hoban with his wealth of experience, and someone like me that has an engineering background, because that's my background. I have an engineering degree and an MBA. I don't have a law degree, but I've lived in the legal system for quite some time, doing bankruptcy work and receivership work in cannabis and non-cannabis. And to realize that maybe there's a way to avoid it, because to me, risk means that you are getting to this undesirable place where your business can be.
Well, I mean, that sort of leads to my question: is were you seeing a lot of cannabis companies going into receivership with just a lack of knowledge about their business and the business environment and the legal environment that they were in, and therefore they just go, you know what, it's all too hard. We'll just give up. Whereas you're saying now, with your information, hopefully it'll make the board, if there is a board, or make owners think more than once before they go down the road that says it's all over.
Yes.
And it looks like MedMen could have were a bit late to the party. If you'd only arrived a year earlier, they might still be in business.
It could be. And also, I've seen some failed mergers and acquisitions that could have gone better, because if they had visibility into each other's risk assessment.
Well, it seems to me the cannabis environment is a graveyard for M&A. Has been a lot of very badly thought out M&A, but obviously because it didn't have that financial support behind it, it all just became too hard. And I presume a combination of it didn't work, and lawyers and accountants' fees and everybody else's fees. You just think, you know what, let's just do what we knew best and stop joining up with other people until we know how to do it.
That's right. Focus on your core competency, cut costs, manage your cash flow, basic stuff, right? Stuff that companies can do today. How do you avoid going down this path? There are things that companies can do to prevent it. What we offer is this additional layer of a third party, non-affiliated, non-associated perspective, intelligence that allows these companies to understand where they're at least as it compares to their market, as it compares to their peers, as it compares to the country, or at least majority of the country, because not all states are joined the
party yet. Although
join the party yet. Yeah, but
I think they will sooner rather than later.
It's a trend. I mean, yeah.
So I had a question. Is I don't expect you to know the answer to this, but I'm sort of interested. Is with the limited amount of research you've done across companies and states, what type of companies are doing well, and was it a surprise to you when you found out which ones were doing better than others? It's a bit of a general question, I know, but I'm sort of interested.
No, I do have an opinion. I do have a perspective, on that issue. But I can tell you that retail seems to be more attractive today, at least for the companies that are lending, or at least lending money. Not necessarily traditional lending, but more higher rate lending. And there's logic. I don't agree with it. Personally, I think the supply chain.
Well, I'm looking at New York at the moment, and there's a lot of retail, but there's not very many growers. They can't they can't buy their plants out of state. So you can have as much retail as you like, but if you don't have any stock, seems a fairly pointless exercise.
I absolutely. The supply chain need to be looked after in a similar manner. You can't just throw all the money into a retail just because, and logically it makes sense. That's your touch point with consumers. That's where the money come through. That's who control the cash. And if you lend money to whoever controls the cash and you put enough force on it, you'll get your money out of it, right? But what does it do? The ripple effect. Bills are not being paid. The delinquency is out of control. The rest of the supply chain that you rely on, that you need in order to do your business, is becoming second and third class options from an investment perspective. I don't agree with that trend. It is a trend, though. That is where you see most of the investment going in. It
seems a bit of a dead end to me. If you can't, you can have you can have bricks and mortar or online, but if you don't have product, you don't have product.
And there's a great product out there, and there's great manufacturers out there, and the fact that they have to sell their product with extended credit because they are at the mercy of the retailer, because they're the only ones that can move it to the consumer, that puts a lot of stress on these companies.
Well, it's like the standard. Here in the UK with the 4 big supermarkets, and being the primary producers, you're at the mercy of the people you're supplying to. Hemp businesses. Are you also doing hemp businesses as well?
Yes, and actually that was our second phase, and we're doing a partnership with a university to make sure that our algorithm is adjusted, because we don't need to recreate the wheel. There's a lot of similarities, but there's certain things that hemp introduces that cannabis does not. The marijuana industry does not, and that's other applications that hemp does or has revenue opportunities that are not available to the marijuana industry. So we will be introducing the hemp score probably, I would say, Q1 next year. It is working
pretty quick. It's pretty quick.
Yeah, it's a great program, and we have high hopes that we'll be able to get everything we need verified and researched done by smart students that will help us. But I think that we should be available next year.
And by tackling the most snafu market in the world, does that? You did that on purpose? It would have been much easier just to